Anyway, lads, welcome back to what is already episode 8, number 8. This is of the Magpie247 toonTALK podcast. I am joined here today with Kyle. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm doing really good. It's always better to do podcasts after a win, especially with what we're talking about in this podcast, two wins. So yeah, I'll be looking forward to it, and yeah, it's been a good week, so it should be a positive, happy going podcast.
Yeah, I completely agree. It is a lot more fun to do these podcasts when we have some wins to talk about, some positives to talk about. And I suggest we get straight into it by talking about yesterday's game against Fulham. But before we get into that, let's first have a quick listen to what Paul had to say about the game.
Who else but Bruno? Who else to the rescue? It's wallpapering over the cracks. We did not play our very best at all. It was very much after the Lord's May show, after the game in the Champions League against Benfica midweek. But hey, we'll take that. This could be the turning point in the season. This could be the moment our luck finally starts to change. You know, too many times this campaign we've thrown away points, victories against the likes of Arsenal, against the likes of Brighton and Liverpool, but today we seen it through. We were still pushing right to the final few moments of the match, and it's the super sub again. Super subs are making a huge impact this season. Obviously, midweek it was Harvey Barnes. Tonight it was Will Asula. It comes on, goes on a mazy run. Nobody knows. I don't even think he knew himself, to be honest, what he was going to do. Gets the shot away. Good save by their keeper, and you're sort of thinking it's going to be one of them days, but no. Who's following it up? It's Captain Fantastic. It's Bruno to smash the ball in, and St James's Park finally erupted today. It was absolutely and utterly fantastic. Great noise, great energy right at the end. It was a bit of a strange one atmosphere-wise throughout, to be honest. It was a little bit quiet. It was certainly a lot cold, but at the end of the day, 3 points is all that mattered. I said that beforehand. I predicted 2-1 before we kicked off for analysis, and that's how it turned out in the end. So delighted with the victory. It was a hugely important and significant one, and like I touched upon before, this could be a turning point in the season, that we now start getting a little bit more consistency in the games. But now we have to move on. Different competition, League Cup, Spurs. Looking forward to it. Massive game, a chance to get into what the quarterfinals of the League Cup, and you've got to be in it to win it. There'll be changes, no doubt about that. But I'm not going to hide behind any issues today with regards to fatigue or this, that, and the other. We were the better side, you would say, although Fulham are probably going to be a little bit frustrated that they didn't get anything out of it, with obviously the manner in which they conceded the winning goal right at the end of the game into stoppage time. But we had more possession, more passing, and more shots, and shots on target. Although, again, did we make their keeper work enough? Yeah. I mean, we had the chances, didn't we, early on in the game? We could have been a couple up. Jacob Murphy had another glorious chance, probably a more difficult chance he scored with, first of all. He had an easier chance following that, and it was a great save from their keeper. But to be honest, if I'm being 100% truthful, we probably didn't do as much as what we should have done in this game. But last season, they did the double over us, so it was important that we got a victory over them, and that's one up on last season. Yeah, looking forward now to the next game. Thanks a lot. Keep it tuned, and I'll speak to you later.
First of all, before we get into the game, what did you think about our starting 11 going into this match?
You know what? To be fair, the 11 that started, it didn't surprise us as such. I thought like a lot of the team that did start would have been the team that did, especially the back four. I think we've got a settled back four at the moment until we get Lewis Hall back in and Tino. So whilst that situation's being the way it is, that it just seems that is what back four at the moment. But yeah, in terms of the starting lineup, I was quite happy to see Lewis Miley get another start because I thought he was brilliant in midweek, as we'll come on to. I was surprised Barnes didn't start because I thought he came on and had a really fantastic game against Benfica to earn him a start. But he went with Murphy and Gordon. I think, obviously, looking at the game, that was probably the best outgoing of it. And then obviously Walter Mara leading the line as well. So yeah, in terms of the starting team, I think it was quite a good team to go with.
Yeah, I think I agree with about everything you're saying there, especially with the wing situation. Barnes did have a really big impact coming on, as we will most likely get onto when we're talking about the Benfica fixture. But I wasn't really surprised to see Murphy and Gordon starting. Me and Paul were talking last week about Murphy probably had having been the better pick to start against Brighton as well, because he is probably a bit more suited to finding Voltemade in dangerous areas than Elanga is, and having a bigger impact than Elanga is at this moment in time. Other than that, I was happy to see Louis Miley start. It's unfortunate that it was instead of Tonali, because Tonali has been, in my opinion, our player of the season so far. But in future games, I think it could offer us a bit more solidity to have him and Tonali, and give Bruno a bit more license to go forward. Because, I mean, when we are talking about yesterday's fixture, there is only one man we can really talk about. It is Captain Marvelous, Captain Fantastic, Bruno Guimaraes. What did you think of his performance?
It's happened a few times at St James's Park this year where we've needed a moment in a game and Bruno stepped up, and that's what he does. I think if he was to be critical, he probably should have had another one in the early second half with the missing header, but he stood up at the right time and got with that late goal. I think he said himself a very much a poacher's finish, and that's exactly what it was, being in the right place at the right time. But that's what good captains do. They step up when the team needs them, and Bruno consistently does that for Newcastle. And yeah, I think he's one of them now that it probably was solidified when we won the cup, but like probably legend status for me in terms of the way he's carried himself, the way he's evolved as a player, as a captain as well. And then I think following on from like consistent performances and really being the heartbeat of that team going forward. Like I agree, I think we've got Tonali, who's an excellent technical midfielder, and we've got a lot of promising players. But I think Bruno's definitely been our best signing since the takeover in terms of the general impact he's had. But yesterday was just a case of him stepping up like he did against Nottingham Forest, like he did against Chelsea at the back end of last season. So yeah, I think there's with Bruno, there's just a sense of reliability about him where I just think Newcastle can always rely on him to get something out of the game. And I don't think there's many midfielders on the planet I'd trade him for. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I was actually talking to my dad yesterday whilst we were watching the game, and even before he scored the goal, I said to him, if it were up to me, he would be the next player who deserves a statue outside of the ground, because he embodies everything that this club is about, especially the re-revival of it since the takeover. He's been there since nearly day one of the new ownership, and I don't think I've ever seen him have a game below a 6 out of 10, which is
Yeah.
unbelievable, as he's there week in, week out as well, the most reliable figure in our team and one of the most reliable players in the league. I'm absolutely sure of that.
Yeah.
You see him often linked to clubs like Manchester City, Real Madrid, and the thing is, when Isaac was linked to clubs like that, even though you wouldn't admit it to yourself, there was always that pit in your stomach where you were like, maybe he does want to leave. And I mean, we saw the situation that unfolded over the summer. But with Bruno, I don't have that fear. I know if and when he eventually leaves the club, it will be in the most respectful way possible. It will be because he feels, on the one hand, there is an opportunity he simply can't turn down, which we won't stand in his way for. But on the other hand, he won't just leave us for a club waving some cash at him because he knows what it's about. He's our captain, and he understands the way Newcastle represents its city, its people, and yeah, yesterday's game just showed that yet again. Before his goal, every single tackle he made, he was hyping up the crowd yet again. My dad was asking about him, so he makes an impact to someone who my dad likes to watch football games, but he has no idea about any players. So the fact that he stood out to him says it all, in
Yeah,
my opinion.
amazing. Yeah, for sure. I think what you say about Bruno and potentially getting a statue as well, I think is 100% bang on, because I think the impact he's made on this club since the takeover, and I think it was his 150th start yesterday for the club. So I think there's just an unbelievable sense of legend status where he is loved up here. And I think if there is one day he does leave, and obviously that will come, it'll be in the right way, not like previous players have done in the past, where the forced moves or used politics and stuff like that. Whereas with Bruno, he's very much took not just the football club on as his, but he's also took the city and the fan base and the culture and everything up here. And I think he's kind of set a standard for a lot of foreign players who come to Newcastle in the future, because the stereotype in England for a long time was all foreigners don't kind of get the culture and stuff. Whereas like Bruno's kind of exceeded that. He's came from Lyon, and then previously playing in Brazil and stuff like that as well. And he's really just took the culture as his own, and he's basically seen as, even though he was born in like Rio de Janeiro, in Brazil, like there's a feeling like it's like he was born here, because he's took on the culture and everything so much, to where he's seen as a Geordie, and it's unbelievable. So yeah, I think that's what Bruno's managed to change at the club, where he's just such a special and unique person, as well as a great footballer, who's managed to really inspire a lot of people, for like a lot of fans, and a lot of those same fans that now see him as a legend of the club.
Absolutely. And it is off and on the pitch because, as you say, it is for new signings also a real big character to look at, to kind of get a feel of what it takes to be loved by this fan base and to grow into this club. People like Nick Voltema, the Malik Diao, I'm absolutely 100% sure they look up to a character like Bruno Guimaraes, because how can you not? And it was also quite telling for me that after the game, the Brazilian winger of Fulham, Kevin, came up to
Kevin.
Bruno and asked him to swap shirts. That kind of tells me that even for young Brazilian kids, Bruno is someone they look up to, someone they feel like a Brazilian player who really succeeded in the Premier League. And that's a magnificent compliment, because we cannot forget Brazil is a nation which produces some amazing footballers. And
Yeah, it
the
is.
fact that he gets called up every single time as well for them, it's he's an unbelievable player.
Yeah, it really tells you like just how much he's inspired, and like a player like Kevin, who came off the bench and got an assist yesterday, um, and looks like a tidy player. Like Bruno's a regular player in that Brazil team. So for someone like a Kevin to go up to Bruno and be inspired by that, I think is really commendable for sure.
Absolutely. Some other players we would like to touch on when it comes to the Fulham game, because it ended with a late winning goal from our captain Bruno Guimaraes. The 1-0 was scored by Jacob Murphy, a pretty scruffy goal where he takes it off of Calvin Bassey, the center back, and then runs onto the keeper. At first, I thought he's taking it a little too wide, but then he
Yeah.
slotted it home in the far corner. So, I mean,
Mm.
who am I to complain about it?
Yeah,
But that first half was really rigid, in my opinion. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I was. To be fair, I said exactly the same to Paul yesterday. About the goal. Literally, he took it wide, and I thought he'd messed it up a little bit, but he's managed to hit it at the right time to go across the goalkeeper, and it is incredibly hard to do. So I was really pleased he managed to put that away. But yeah, in terms of the first half, it was a bit lackluster at times, and a bit slow, and just tough to get going. I think it reminded us a bit of Wednesday. like the first half against Benfica, we'll come on to, was a tight affair, and it was really difficult for Witt to get in behind. And Fulham seemed to have a nice balance of being able to defend against Witt. And then obviously Calvin Bassey makes a comical error where he loses the ball and then he fails to catch Murphy for us to get our goal. And yeah, I think in terms of the first half, we're slightly the better side, but again, it was just a case of like a really struggling kind of cancelling each other out type of team, which is kind of what I expect with Fulham, because Fulham are a decent side on that day. That are in a bit of bad form at the minute, but I have no worries that they'll go down or anything like that. But yeah, I think it was a really tight first half for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I also don't think Fulham will go down. They are too good of a side to do so, and especially the manager, I think, is too good to do so. Because
For
I
sure.
actually believe the manager got it pretty spot on from them for the first half, which is why it was such a rigid game. The one thing that I think he did best was give Calvin Bassey the role of following Nick Voltemade everywhere he goes on the pitch, because we now know Voltemade likes to drop deep and combine our play and get Gordon and Murphy running in behind of him. But when Bassi continuously steps out and follows Gordon, it means follows Voltemade. That means he couldn't be involved in the build-up as much as we would have wanted to. And if he would have been, we would have sent Gordon through a lot more, because we saw early on that he was giving Kenny Tete a lot more problems, and a lot more problems that I think he would have been able to sustain throughout the 90 minutes, which unfortunately he wasn't quite able to. But I
Yeah.
do believe that's mostly down to Bassi. So it was his mistake which led to the 1-0, but it was also mostly him, which I feel was the reason for us not getting into the game. But that did quite change quite a bit in the second half. We were 1-0 up at that point, which does help. We have shown this season we are quite defensively capable, and one of those reasons has to be Malik Thiaw, who, if it wasn't for Bruno Guimaraes, would have been my man of the match yesterday. What did you think of his performance?
Yeah, Malik Chow, I'm really impressed with him. I think he's so composed. His recovery running is absolutely brilliant. His ability to make those last second actions where he's under a lot of pressure to perform that action, he's very good at. And I think it's one hell of a player. I think 35 million's an absolute steal in this day and age and stuff, especially when you see top centre backs going for a lot more money in today's market. Absolutely fantastic signing. Really happy with Malik Chow. And he seems to have bought into it as well. You see him celebrating the goals and stuff and being really passionate as well. So I'm really happy with Malik Chow as a signing, and I cannot see a way in which he gets dropped for the foreseeable future. I think he's been absolutely outstanding. And I think there was at least a few points yesterday where if Malik Chow wasn't there and it was maybe a Fabian Schär or a Jamal Lascelles, where we would have got caught up and it would have been a really difficult, more of a difficult situation to be in. But I think Malik Chow being there on that right side of the centre back position, it was really good that he was just able to recover the ball and recycle it quite quickly. So he'll recover the ball and he'll get it out really fast. So his ability to transition the play is very good. I think his tackling is very good. He's hard to run past. And he just seems to be a fantastic player, and he's probably elevated his game a lot since he's left AC Milan, because they had a struggling season last year where they only finished like eighth and avoided Europe completely. But he's managed to come in and really elevate our defence, and I think in turn we've managed to elevate his game as well individually. So really happy with Malik Chow so far. Really wanted him to score yesterday. I had a feeling he was going to score from a set piece, but he seems to be a really popular figure at Newcastle so far, because it seems like a really good mix with him and Botman. And then I think he's a phenomenal player and a really, really strong signing.
Absolutely. Yeah. You touched on his composure there, and that's something I like in his game as well. He's got that German coolness for German center backs in him, which I on the one hand adore, but I did kind of worry that maybe in situations where it isn't going as well, it could be it could be something people point at where they go he's looking a bit yeah nonchalant is maybe not the right way to describe it, but you know what I'm trying to say. But what really impressed me yesterday was when we were actually pushing Fulham to score that winning goal. We were passing it around the back, and the ball was moving around a bit too slowly, and he was yelling for the ball. And the moment he received that pass, he actually rushed forward with it. So there was an urgentness to wanting to attack from him, which is something I really like to see from my center backs as well. So he's got both facets to his game, which is absolutely fantastic. I cannot say something bad about Malik Thiaw at this moment in time. At this moment in time,
Yeah,
he's
he's
fantastic.
been fantastic, and like the defensive side of the game is there as well. And I think that was more shown against Arsenal, where he had a couple of last ditch tackles and stuff like that. But his ability to get the ball and transition it forward very fast, like he did yesterday, was a breath of fresh air. Because I think, especially in games where a low block's been an issue for her, I think that ability to turn defense into attack at a snap of a finger is very good. And I think Chow is going to be excellent at being able to help our transition going forward for sure.
Absolutely. Some other players we would like to touch on from yesterday's result. If we're still talking about the players who forced our victory, shall we say, then we have to talk about substitute Osula, because what an impact he made when coming onto the pitch. Maybe he could have even or should have even been subbed on a bit sooner. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I posted on our socials yesterday after the match that Asula won us that game. And although we brought on several subs, we brought on like Tonali, we brought on Barnes, Alanga. I think Asula won with that game for sure. He came on, he was just that right bit of energy at the right time. And I think Bassi from Chase and Walter around all game just kind of couldn't deal with that kind of energy that late in the game. And obviously the drive and run gets the shot away, Bruno puts it away, but I think there was a couple of moments as well where Sula managed to like win a corner late on, where they could have well broke if the we didn't get the turnover when we did. So yeah, in terms of him coming on at the right time and really changing the game was unbelievable. And I think like I know Paul said in the past where Asula might not be good enough, but I think as a third choice striker, we could do a lot worse than William Asula,
Mm-hmm.
and he seems happy in that role. Like obviously he'll want to eventually get to a place where he's starting, but like you look at his connection with like Visa, Voltamara, like he's got a good connection with all the players, and I think he's happy to be a part of that squad and continue to be one of the heartbeats of the dressing room kind of thing, where he's a happy kind of good energy around the dressing room. And he came off the bench and he was absolutely brilliant. And I think the only thing he didn't do yesterday was probably score. But if you're not going to score, that's the type of impact you want on a game.
Mm-hmm.
So, really happy with the way Sula came on and really changed the landscape of the game. Because I think if we didn't bring Asula on yesterday, we would have been talking about 1-1 draw.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I think when Paul said it about Osula maybe not being good enough, I agreed at the time, but it has to be said he's made some massive strides forward since then. And in football, sometimes you just have to revise your opinion, and Osula is making us revise that opinion at this moment in time, because he is having an impact every single time he gets off of the bench, and it is so useful to have those kind of players in the squad, because we cannot forget it is only a couple of years ago that Eddie Howe looked at the bench when we were in need of a goal and saw three keepers sitting on there and two kids and Joe Willock. So I mean, now being able to bring on Tonali, Elanga, Barnes, Osula, and still having put out a really, really strong starting 11 is a fantastic
Yes.
place for us to be, and a place we actually wanted to be able to compete on multiple levels. So that's a real big positive of yesterday's result as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I know it's one of the first things I noticed when I seen the team sheet, like how strong our bench actually is, and we're able to bring noticeable players on who are going to come on and make a difference. And I think that happened yesterday. Like Tonali came on and was a positive presence in that midfield. And I think you're seeing it with obviously Asula as well as that Alanga. Alanga came on and was positive. I think he had a couple of really bad crosses and stuff, and I think there's still a long way to go for him. But he came on, he won the ball back, which led to a goal. And he gave their fullback a real kind of problem in the last 15, 20 minutes. So positive impacts off the bench is just what we're looking for. And like as well as that, like our substitutions this week have been absolutely fantastic. Obviously, we'll touch on them more with the Benfica match as well, with how good subs have been. But again, yesterday kind of showed again how strong we can be off the bench, and I think it will be a theme this season where, especially in games where we've played midweek, where those substitutions are going to be all the more vital for.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you touched upon Elanga there as well. I thought he looked bright coming on. He maybe his end product isn't really there yet, but he is looking to make things happen, which is a positive. And we cannot forget it took Gordon a while to settle into Eddie Howe's system as well. Eddie Howe has
Absolutely.
pretty specific demands of his wingers. I mean, it took Murphy 8 years to settle in. So
Yeah,
I think we can afford him a bit more time because you
yeah,
do
yeah,
see
for
there
sure.
is an
Yeah,
electric player in there, and he was really good for Nottingham Forest last season.
he
So I'm
was.
not too worried about him. But when you have players like Voltemade, Thiaw, who are performing from the get-go, it is quite understandable that people talk a bit more about them and have a bit more criticism for you, which
Yeah.
also is warranted. If he has a bad performance like he did against Brighton, that has to be said, then
Mm.
he rightfully comes in for that criticism. But it's good to see that he doesn't let it get to him and is hungry to keep on producing for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And our bench is only going to get stronger as well, especially when Tino, Hall, and Visa come into the frame as well. So um, even players like Asula might struggle to get on the bench in the coming months. So it is a constant battle for that those extra places in the team and stuff. And healthy competition's always good.
Absolutely. And Eddie Howe has shown in the past he has a really, really strict rule about mostly picking on form instead of on the name, and you have to play yourself back into the side. I mean, we're seeing it right now with Fabian Scher missing out most weeks for Malik
Yeah.
Thiaw, which is warranted because of Malik Thiaw's performances. That just fills me with confidence that having a big squad actually will work for us, because having such a positive culture around the club also means that players are okay with having to work for their place in the team because they want to play for this team.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a healthy balance. Like you say, Fabian Scher's been an unbelievable servant for Newcastle, where he's been top top defender for like 5, 6 years, and it's the first time he's actually struggling to get into the team. I thought he came on yesterday and did really well. There was a ball into Barnes, I think, that was absolutely outstanding, a long diagonal pass. And he'll probably play some part in midweek when we play Tottenham. So yeah, I think there's a lot to be a positive about in terms of the overall squad.
Absolutely. Are there any other players you would like to touch upon from the Fulham result? I remember you did talk about the Bruno Guimaraes missing header. One thing I would like to talk about from that specific chance was the way Voltemade reached Gordon with that little flick on. That was absolutely beautiful.
Brilliant.
He literally every single Fulham defender in the box was pulled towards Voltemade, and he still reached Gordon to give him a lot of time really to pick out Bruno. It really should have been a goal because that was beautiful, beautiful attack.
Yeah,
Combination.
it was. And even though Voltemara didn't have like the the game where he usually gets his goal and stuff like that. He was still a real effective way of how we play. Like it's totally changed how Newcastle play. His ability to link up play is absolutely off the charts. So Newcastle weren't able to play this way with any other striker that we've had previous.
Mm-hmm.
He's just so unique in being able to link up the play and be a dominating presence in the box. Like that's incredibly rare. And his ability to dribble forward, and he's quite quick for his size as well. Like he's the complete package. And I'm thankful we've got him, and we've managed to still win the summer by bringing someone of his caliber in, and as well as that, being able to improve all aspects of our attack. I just think in the league, there's been a couple of games where our wingers haven't been particularly great, and a mixture of that with the first 3 or 4 games of the season not having an actual centre forward in the team, and that was a massive problem for where I think. So yeah, I think obviously we're 10th at the moment, but there's a lot to be encouraged about for sure. And although we did lose against Brighton last week, I think we've got a really good chance to kick on now and really make a splash on this season for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Completely agree. In that case, I suggest we move on or move a little bit back to the Benfica result in the Champions League, because we have now made it 6 points out of a possible 9, beating Jose Mourinho's Benfica at St. James's Park.
Yeah.
A comfortable 3-0. General thoughts on the game?
Yeah, I thought it was a really strong result. Like Benfica are a dangerous side and have a couple of really strong players there. But yeah, I think we managed to control the first half, although they did hit the post in like early in the first half, and there was moments in that game where I thought, oh, it might be a bit of a Mourinho masterclass in terms of getting men behind the ball and frustrating them. But I think there was moments where we really did manage to show our quality. That first goal where Bruno plays the ball through and Murphy crosses it in for a golden finish, absolutely brilliant play from Newcastle. Bruno really showing his quality to play that through ball, and then Murphy, once he's in that half space and he's got the space to cross that ball, there's not many better players to have in that situation. He's unbelievable at it. And yeah, I think the general thought was the second half was absolutely amazing. We absolutely blew them away in that second half, where they couldn't really live with it at all, and they really struggled. Anthony Gordon was absolutely brilliant. Murphy was brilliant when he was on as well. Walter Mara was a real handful, and it just seemed to be a really good overall performance. Like we did struggle in the first half a little bit, but I think there was a feeling of we weren't going to lose that game, and the players on the field weren't going to allow us to lose that game because we're in control for the most part of it. There was a player at Benfica though that I was really impressed by, Luke Bacchio, their right winger. He seems like a real a player with real potential. So he maybe want to keep an eye on.
I mean, he's 28 now.
Is he? Oh, I thought he was a younger player. Fair enough.
Yeah, he's only really cementing himself as a useful player, shall we say, because he is still looking for his first Benfica goal. But last season, he was the main guy at Sevilla, so he's quite good.
Yeah, he seems like a good player. I honestly thought he was like 22, 23.
He looks that
my
way.
apologies
I know,
on that one.
No worries.
I did notice you were completely spot on about their goalkeeper as well. Because when we went and done the deep dive preview the last time I was on the podcast, you mentioned Trubin was terrible with his feet. Their defenders were taking his goal kicks. So I'm like, okay, maybe Ian was right about Trubin for sure. See, he made a couple of good shots, a good couple of like saves in terms of the game, but he's terrible with his feet. So we'll probably stay well away from him for now. But
maybe we should, yeah.
Yeah, but in terms of Benfica, it was a bit of bit of a strange one with Mourinho, because when I was growing up and stuff, whenever Mourinho came to St James's Park, it was with the best team in England usually.
Mm.
So the same comeback with a Benfica side that we absolutely just tore apart, it kind of shows how far he's fallen a little bit, to be fair. And Mourinho's one of my favorite all-time coaches. I think he's an enigma in that, where he's just a complete maverick and he's accomplished some amazing feats in football. But I think his time at club football's slowly coming to an end, and I still think he'd be brilliant in international football, because tactically it's not as up to speed as club football is. But I think at club level he's not special anymore for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I don't like to admit it because I do love Mourinho as well, but his tactics probably are a bit outdated in the fact that he has a blueprint in which he wants to play football, and nowadays you get the most out of, or maybe not necessarily the most out of your players, but all modern teams and modern coaches base their tactics around the talent they have at their disposal. And we also have to take into consideration the fact that Mourinho has only joined Benfica, I think, a month or two ago. Definitely after the transfer window had already shut. So this isn't necessarily his squad either. He's still figuring out the players, and he's not doing too bad in the Portuguese league, but that is the Portuguese league. So, I mean, I do agree we did kind of blow them away, especially in that second half. We finally got out of that first gear, which we didn't get out of against Union either, because that wasn't necessary at that point. It was not necessarily the. I mean, I agree. We were never going to lose the game against Benfica, even though we were conceding some chances. Mostly from Luca Bacchio. But the way we came out of the dressing room for the second half just took the game by the scruff of the neck and said, okay, let's just put this game to bed as quick as possible, move on to the next result, maybe even preserve some players here and there. I thought that was really professional of us, and that's something I like to see as well, because if we want to win things, that's how we have to see out games, and that's something we have made a name for ourselves over the last few seasons, is being competitive against the big boys, but consistently beating the teams below us. That's why we finish high up the table. So that's something I really like about us.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a stat where we've only since Eddie Howe took charge, we've only lost one game to teams in the bottom three, and that was Luton
Yeah.
away. And other than that, we've got a really strong record against those teams. And like I know it's one where like you should win those games, but there's a lot of teams that don't,
I
and
mean, we saw Chelsea
it can
yesterday.
yes, yeah, exactly. So it can be a little bit of a banana skin for teams. So for us to have that type of record, it just makes us think like we're always going to be a threat, or always going to be able to pick up points in those games.
Absolutely. Yeah. As for the players against Benfica, I was really impressed with Barnes coming on from the bench, scoring
Yeah.
twice to make it 3 Champions League goals for him. At this point, I believe Gordon and Barnes are really having a good time in the Champions League, and it's quite surreal to see them score so much in Europe and not having had a goal contribution yet in the Premier League so far. But I mean, as for Gordon, that's probably a bit more explainable with the red card and him having to operate in a different role at the start of the season. But I mean, as for the other players, we have to mention Nick Pope's assist, right? He's got more
Oh my
Champions
God!
League goal contributions than a certain
What a
Swedish
throw!
striker.
Yeah, literally, it was unbelievable. Like, he threw the ball, and I seen it bounce over the defender, and I'm like, he needs to do that more often. I shouted that at Paul, and then Barnes went on to score, and I shouted at Paul again. He needs to do that more often. Like, yeah, but what a what a brilliant throw! And like, I know Nick Pope gets a lot of stick at times for his distribution, and that includes myself as well. I think kicking wise, he's very poor, but yeah, I think in terms of his throwing ability, he needs to definitely do that a lot more often. Because the ability to throw it, what, 65, 70 yards, that accurately towards Barnes's path as well is absolutely brilliant for sure. Yeah, it was one of the best assists I've seen at St James's Park for sure.
Absolutely.
I think the only one I've seen that's probably better in terms of like a longer pass was probably Willock's against
Oh,
Tottenham, but
the outside of
barring
the
that,
foot. Oh,
yeah,
what an unbelievable pass that was.
to,
Yeah.
to the man that should not be named. But yeah, it was a really good throw, and it put we 2-0 up in, and it had we coasting really, and we really deserved to be 2-0 in front at that time.
Absolutely. I suggest we'll take a little break right now because the recording time is going to run out, and we'll be back with some more information about the Benfica match, some more players we need to talk about because there is a certain Jacob Ramsey I was pretty impressed with as well.
Mm.
So we'll see you in a few seconds for you and in a couple of minutes for us. All right, here we are back from the break. And I mean, if we are talking some more specific players against Benfica who really impressed us, I would like to start with Jacob Ramsey, who actually made his first start for Newcastle United. It was good to see him after he had a little time out injured after signing for the club. But I was actually quite impressed with him. He shows a lot of energy, something you have to show if you're going to replace Joelinton in that role. But he's popping up in a lot of interesting areas to combine with players, which is something I like to see from him. And he's comfortable with drifting out wide as well, which is quite a unique skill of Joelinton. So it's really nice to see we have a different player who is capable of doing that as well. What did you think of Ramsey's performance?
Yeah, I really like the look of him. To be fair, I think before his injury, he'd only had a couple of little cameo appearances and whatnot. But yeah, I think he's a really good player in terms of his movement on the ball. He looks very technical and very skillful in that aspect. And he's another one of them players that offers something a little bit different. Obviously, with Joelinton, you've got like a kind of a bruiser type midfielder who's going to break up play and cause problems that way. Lewis Miley, who's a bit more of a playmaker, and then you've got like Jacob Ramsey, who's a big upgrade on Joe Willock, I think, in terms of that box to box ability and being able to be solid and be really good in all aspects of the of play. So yeah, I think in terms of what we'll have with Jacob Ramsey, I think there's a really good player there, and I think although it is early days, there is a real potential that he could more than challenge Joelinton for the permanent spot in that third role within that midfield. So for sure, again, it comes back to what we mentioned before the break of a real healthy competition among the squad, and I think midfield is that of the most healthy because Joe Willock's a solid Premier League player. Like he's played in the Premier League his whole career, and yet we're looking at him as potentially sixth choice in that midfield. So kind of shows the level of competition within the level of the quality that's in the midfield. So yeah, I'm really happy with the way Jacob Ramsey started, but more importantly, with every different type of game that we'll play in the Premier League, we're going to be able to offer something different. And I think Jacob Ramsey against Benfica was a real danger man in terms of getting the ball forward. And he's just all energy all the time. So yeah, I was really happy with his performance, and I think there's a lot more to come from him as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. On the one hand, I think we cannot forget this was the first time we used this specific midfield setup with him, Luis Miley, and Bruno Guimaraes, which is a heavily rotated midfield, but also a midfield which showed they are capable um, of competing and of keeping things tight, which was really positive in my opinion against Benfica. They weren't able to play through our center. And as for the future, I think Jacob Ramsey offers us a real positive ability to play around with the formation we're using in and off the ball. Because I think if you have Jacob Ramsey starting in your midfield three and maybe Johan Wissa is back fit, you could start out Gordon on the right, Wissa on the left, and Gordon and Voltemade in at number 9. And when you're attacking and Voltemade drops deep, that's maybe a moment where Wissa comes to be more central because he can play as a striker as well. And Jacob Ramsey takes that sprint towards being a left winger, more so in that instance. And then you have a lot more dynamism in your attack, which is a lot harder to deal with, especially for teams who sit back against us, which is something we struggle with. So that can only be a positive. That's why I really wanted to talk about him, because I think there's a lot for us to dream on with this Jacob Ramsey signing.
Yeah, for sure. I think like I mentioned, there's a lot of potential there, and I think there is a real opportunity for players like him, like Lewis Miley, to really implement their qualities onto the team. And like I say, it is a difference in quality. Like, they've got different qualities, so it is going to be a case of different games are going to require different qualities and personalities. And I think that's where Jacob Ramsey comes in, as well as that. Like, with you mentioned before about the wingers not doing as much in the league as such. And Jacob Ramsey can't play left wing as well, so there may be an opportunity where he plays there for a few games, or gets an opportunity there if the game needs him to be there, and a potential for another centre midfielder in transition as well. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of potential with Jacob Ramsey and a lot to be excited about.
Absolutely. And if we're talking about big performers against Benfica, the player who got the highest rating on SofaScore, apart from the man of the match, which was Gordon, is Sven Botman. And I think that's pretty warranted, because he was absolutely fantastic yet again, as he has been all season. What a defensive partnership they have got going on. And I must admit, at the start of the season, I thought this would be our future centre back partnership. But given the way Byrne and Fabian Schär have been performing for us for more than a season at this point, I hardly saw them being this good and this consistent this early on in the season. Yet here we are.
Yeah, I love the partnership between the two of them, to be fair. The first time they played together was in the Carabao Cup, I think, against Bradford. And I know, like, Bradford is a lot less of an opposition than what they've came up against. But when I seen them play together, I'm like, that's got to be it going forward, because I think we mentioned earlier with Malik Chow's ability to get the ball forward quicker. Botman's exactly the same in that aspect of being able to turn it from defence into attack so fast. And as well as that, the composure that they both have in possession of the ball in tight spaces is unbelievable. And I really like them two as a partnership. They seem to work well. Defensively, they've got a good understanding of how each other play the game. And yeah, for me, I think there's a real partnership there that can take us into the next few years. I think in terms of the best partnerships in the league, you'd probably say, even though they've only played like 3 or 4 games together, really, like, you're talking about maybe like a top 5 centre-back partnership in the league.
Every statistic is backing that at this point.
Exactly. So, like, there's a real opportunity there, and I think it's only the beginning, because we haven't seen them properly with Hall and Tino. Like, we have been quite limited in the way where fullbacks can go forward. I know Dan Burn and Trippier do try, but on the slower side, and on, like, in terms of being able to attack the wide areas, they're quite limited for that. But when you bring in Tino and Hall, it's going to be a nightmare for the teams to deal with.
Absolutely, yeah. And I do think they complement each other so nicely as well, because they both have that composure. But I think Chow is the most comfortable with stepping out of the back line with the ball at his feet and then playing in a teammate, whereas Botman has been magnificent with his long passes this season. He has been the one who has replaced that aspect of Fabian Scher's game in our team this season, and I've been really surprised to see that, because I didn't know he had that to his skill set. But they've been really, really good so far this season.
Yeah, it's an upgrade as well, but it's not a disrespect to Burn and Schär. They've been absolutely brilliant for Newcastle, but it's I think it's just the natural progression and upgraded sense of what we've been like in the transfer market. Like Burn and Shea have been excellent, but these two are younger, they're faster, and they're probably a bit better as well. But different skill sets for different things. So I think Dan Burn against teams that are good with set pieces, he probably still gets started in games. But yeah, I think in terms of games where we want to be, like in terms of possession, the better side, these two are just a different level compared to them. That's not to say Shea and Burn aren't good players. They really are great players for Newcastle, but these two work together so well that I really think it can take us to the next level.
Absolutely, because we can't forget these are two players who, on the one hand, one is probably still going with England to the World Cup, and on the other hand, Fabian Schär made his 200th Newcastle appearance in the Premier League yesterday. So these are two absolute club legends who they can learn of, which is a fantastic place for us to be at. Some different players we might touch upon. I mean, Voltemade still had a big impact. His combinations. I'm running out of superlatives to talk about him because he's just unreal.
Yeah. He is. He, in terms of the link-up play with him, Barnes and Gordon, in that second half was just unbelievable. I think
that third goal,
the third goal. Oh my God! Just like it, just liquid football. Like that's the type of stuff that's the type of stuff you see Barcelona doing and stuff like that. So I know they've beat with this season, but to kind of turn into the type of play that they do was really nice to see.
Absolutely.
And towards the end, it was just, I think there was a good sense of we're enjoying it. Like Eddie Howe, like laughing at Dan Burn taking a volley outside the box. I was laughing too. It was unbelievable. Like, it was nice being in the Champions League and we're being comfortable in a game. And the last 20-30 minutes was just like, we can just enjoy it because we're battering them. We're clearly the better side, and it was just nice to enjoy it. And then to see we're, although briefly, above both Real Madrid and Barcelona in the group phase was brilliant. And like obviously,
absolutely,
El Clasico's later today, and to see that Newcastle were above both of them in the Champions League phase, was quite funny.
That's a screenshot to put up on the fridge.
yeah, it's unbelievable. Like, because although we're trying to find our feet in the Champions League and make a statement where we can, just to say we're above that, up within that type of competition is still unusual to me. It's something I hope I can get used to in the coming years. But yeah, it was nice.
Absolutely. Some other results from the Champions League match week I will go over quickly because, I mean, we've seen some of our future opponents get into action and have some pretty crazy games. The craziest of them probably being PSV Eindhoven beating Napoli 6-2 out in the Netherlands, which is, I mean, a game probably no one would have ever expected to see happen. Credits where credits due. PSV were absolutely fantastic. They are lacking a striker, but that's working out pretty well for them as the combination of Saibari and Gustil is working really well. Those are two number 10s who are interchanging with one another.
Yeah.
And you've got Jerdy Schouten, who is normally a number 6, and he's now playing center back, so they are really comfortable with playing out from the back as well. One thing I do still believe is win the physical battle against PSV, stay on the pitch with 11 men, and you're most likely going to win the game. That's what I would say.
I still see it as one. I still see it as one where we can go and win that game for sure. But I was surprised to see them score 6 and win that really comfortably, because you'd probably say Benfica were the favourites, if anything.
Absolutely.
Benfica,
Napoli. Yeah, Napoli. Sure, especially after how good they were last season under Antonio Conte. A different future opponent of ours, two actually, Leverkusen and PSG. Now, Paris Saint-Germain won this game 7-2 in Leverkusen's ground. So I think that says a lot about both of those future opponents for us.
For sure. Goals to be had.
Absolutely. Leverkusen, I think it's turning into a must-win for us because we are genuinely a better side than Leverkusen are at this moment in time. I really
Yeah.
do believe so. They are a side in transition, and that's not going to go away anytime soon. Paris Saint-Germain, however, they are looking quite scary, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean they're the European champions, and that's what European champions do. There's just put teams to the sword when everything seems to click. So, like I said to you in the deep dive, hopefully we've already got either got into the top 24 mathematically, or even a case where we're in the top eight. But hopefully our the next phase is kind of already sorted for us by the time we go there, so we can just go to PSG and kind of enjoy it.
Absolutely.
As just a case of how we test against the best without being needing to win that game, because it would have been a hard one if we were looking to win that one.
Completely agree. I do also think PSG probably are already comfortable themselves at that moment in time because they have beaten Barcelona. Goal difference isn't going to be something they'll have to worry about.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
maybe that will work in our favor. The second to last game we should look at is Sporting Lisbon, who actually beat Marseille pretty late on. Marseille getting a red card again. They are, apart from Paris Saint-Germain, probably the opponent I'm most worried about. So it's nice to see them losing a game because that means they are vulnerable in Europe. And Sporting isn't necessarily the best team because I mean we slapped Benfica around and they are quite some way above them in the league table.
Yeah.
But the game of our next opponent in the Champions League, Athletic Bilbao, they beat Carabao 3-1, which might not sound that impressive, but let's not forget Carabao were in front. And at that moment in time, that meant Carabao would have 9 out of 9, which is insane.
Yeah, like they might get they probably get into the top 24, you know.
Yeah,
I think they only need one more win and they're probably there. So,
according to Opta, if you get 6 out of 6 from your first 2 match weeks, which they did, you should be there. So
yeah, so there's a real opportunity for them, and fair play to them. Like
absolutely.
it's probably something you only see on Football Manager, where like the team in the smaller leagues in Europe kind of go on and do well and go on to win it and stuff. But
Yeah.
to see it actually happen in real life, I am a real fan of this Champions League format.
Yeah, me too.
It's definitely an evolution from the initial four where they play each other twice, and it's helping we play all types of teams. So I don't think in the old format we would have got to play like a Union SG, for example. So
Exactly.
it is a nice balance of being able to play all European teams, and it gives you a chance to really make an impact. And Aston Villa are a good example of that, making the quarterfinal last
Absolutely.
year.
And being in the top 8.
Exactly. So hopefully we can replicate that and get into the deep part of the competition as well. But I
Absolutely.
really like the new format, and especially the last 2 games where it's a bit of a free for all in
Yeah.
who gets in, who doesn't. But yeah, I'm a real fan of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think every game at this point matters, which is great to see because every team is going for it every single game. As for how Bilbao did against Karabakh, they did go on to win that game, but those were only their first 3 points in this Champions League season. So they haven't turned out to be the most impressive side, shall we say. We do know, however, they have some quality players, Oliver Sunset, the Williams brothers, but this should be a game we probably win as well, given the fact that we're still at home for this fixture too.
Yeah, for sure. I think what Man United put 7 or 8 past them in 2 games, and that was Man United before like they've had a good start to the season. So yeah, I think this is one where goals are there for, and if we can just maintain that composure defensively, that is a game I'd be confident in we're winning as well.
Absolutely. All right, so that's how we finish off the Champions League. Then I suggest we end off this podcast with a little preview for the Tottenham fixture in midweek in the Carabao Cup, a cup we are defending. That is so. probably something we still have to find a bit of pride in and have to still compete for because you want to defend well in this competition. How are you looking ahead of this game? Are you confident we'll get through?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think in terms of having a home tie, I'd be confident against any opposition coming to St James's. But Tottenham are a mixed bag this season. Like, there's one week they'll go and win impressively away to Leeds, which is a hard place to go, and then the next week they'll kind of get beat at home in a poor display against Aston Villa. So it's a case of what Tottenham Hotspurs going to turn up. If they do turn up and play the best that they can, it is going to be a harder game forward. But over the past years at St James's Park, it has been a game where we go and win. Especially over the last couple of years. The last time Tottenham beat us at St James's was the first game under the new era, as it happens. But since then, I think we've been really comfortable against this team at home. And Eddie Howe has a really good record against Thomas Frank as well, losing only one of like 9 games. So I think there's a real chance that we can progress. But it is going to be a hard game. It's going to be a situation of how are they going to rotate as well. Is Asula going to be into the lineup? Are they going to play Fabian Schär and Dan Burn? Are you going to bring Hall back in? Because I know he's relatively close to full fitness. Jacob Ramsey, Lewis Miley, like, are those the type of players that are going to come in as well? So it's an interesting dynamic as to how I was going to do going into this game. I'd expect a strong side because I want to try and defend this, but it's going to be interesting to see what he does.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the same goes for Spurs. They could heavily rotate as well because they are in the same competitions we are, also competing in the Champions League. And Thomas Frank must have seen last season how decimated they were through injuries. So he will want to avoid that this season as well, especially in defense. But it is also an opportunity for those fringe players from our squad to really make an impression on Eddie Howe in this game if they get an opportunity, because Tottenham isn't a pushover as an opponent, so it is still a game you have to turn up for. But I am like you, I'm quite quietly confident to see us go through in this game as well.
Yeah.
One thing I think we can really win this game on is the fact that this isn't really Thomas Frank Spurs just yet. They are, I think, getting better week on week, even though their results aren't quite showing it, but especially defensively, that is. But this still is Ange's gung-ho team who can lose it late. And if history has taught us anything, this is the third highest scoring league fixture in Premier League history, with only, I think, Liverpool, Spurs, and Liverpool Arsenal being higher scoring fixtures. So it's probably going to be quite an eventful game. If I have to make a prediction, which I'm going to ask you to do as well, I would predict we are going through with a 3-1 victory. What are you saying?
3-1's decent. I was going to say by 2 goals as well, and say 2-0.
All right, fantastic. I suggest that's where we'll leave it for today. I think we've covered a lot of fantastic ground in this podcast and given flowers to the right players for this week. I'm really looking forward to next week's episode, being able to talk about this Spurs fixture and about our next Premier League fixture against West Ham. For now, me and Kyle would really like to thank you for listening. If you did go on to enjoy this podcast, please make sure to give us a 5-star rating on Spotify, like and subscribe on YouTube. Please make sure to follow all our social media pages, Instagram, Facebook. It's Magpie247, of course. And I would like to see you in the next episode. Have a good one.